All right, here on this one, we are going to talk about solve by factoring. And we're going to keep it pretty straightforward right now. So we're going to kind of go down the same path we did for factoring, right? So one of the paths that we did for factoring was start with greatest common factor. So here's how we're going to know we need to solve by factoring and not just factor, right? So the idea here is let's just get in practice of factoring. I know you can solve things the other way, but if we solve by factoring, we actually get to an answer a little bit faster. So here's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at things that look like this. X squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So the first thing we're going to look at is there needs to be an equals to sign, because you can only solve if there's an equal sign, and there is an equal sign. Second component, let's make sure we have a 0 over here, right? Because if we have a 0, then we know that we've lined everything up correctly, and it's going to make it easier to do. Okay, so there's actually two ways to solve this. One is using quadratic formula, which we've done, and we'll come back to it eventually, but also we can solve by factoring. So let's take this on. Remember, factoring, no greatest common factor, no number in the front. So let's just go here. What are two things that multiply to 6, but also add to 5? How about 3 and 2? So then we're going to get split the x's, x plus 3, and then we're going to get x plus 2, right? So that's what it's going to look like. Forgot to write. Here we go. X plus 2 equals 0. Okay, so the equals 0 is still there. All right, now check this out, if you will. Imagine if this whole thing equals 0. So then it would be like 0 times junk equals 0, right? Because the 0 times the junk makes the whole thing 0. And so it works that way, right? It makes it happen that way. So let's take that away. So if that's the case, then that's great. The other case is, what if you got this junk times if this one equaled 0? Wouldn't that also equal 0? Because you're multiplying something times 0. So that works as well. So the nice thing, the reason why this factoring works so great is because literally we could take this stuff here, the junk, I could call it, x plus 3, and set it equal to 0. What's it going to take to make that equal 0? Let's subtract 3 from both sides, and x equals negative 3. So if x equals negative 3, then we know that whole thing goes to 0, and we're good. Or let's set this equal to 0. X plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2 from both sides, and you get x is equal to negative 2. So now you got, if you plug a negative 2 in there, that one goes to 0. And they're both right, actually. So we would say we actually have two answers. X equals negative 3 and x equals negative 2. So you get both of the answers, and they're both correct, right? That is called solving by factoring. Now check this out. We could do, let's say we had another one. Let's say we had x squared plus 2x equals 0. Okay, again, if I'm going to solve, it needs to have an equal sign. Perfect. And it also needs to be equal to 0. Perfect. This is good. So let's try again. Let's see if we can factor this. So this one right here, it only factors with a greatest common factor. So let's pull out an x, and that's going to leave with us x plus 2 equals 0. Same thing happens here. Check this out. What if this equals 0? Then the whole thing equals 0. Or what if this equals 0? Then the whole thing equals 0. Just the same thing that we had earlier. So let's separate it. Let's go the first one. X equals 0. Oh, done. Nothing else to do. Okay, let's try this one. X plus 2 equals 0. Okay, we're getting close. Subtract 2 from both sides. X equals negative 2. Good. That's it. These are our two answers. X equals 0 and x equals negative 2. Both of those work, right? So there we go, guys. Factoring first and using it to solve. This is what we're going to be doing.